First News with Keeler in the morning on WIBX and WIBX950.com.
WIBX.
This is Keeler.
WIBX 950 and 92.3 FM.
Now back to the Keeler Show.
Yeah, that football game last night had no. Did anybody score a touchdown?
I don't believe so. Was the
there a
49ers missed extra point?
No, it's just sloppy by both teams.
All right, so there were 6 field goals.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Boring. And it's funny. Tony Kornheiser, is that the guy who does Pardon the Interruption? He's like, wow, this should be bet the over on this game because the Rams scored 44 points. The 49ers scored 38. This should be a good game for the over.
Yeah, it was not at all.
I wonder.
Yeah.
We'll have to ask Scott how he did.
Yeah, probably not good on this one. I can't imagine.
I don't think anybody would have anticipated that.
Yeah. Mike says regarding Joe's money, it is the season. 'Tis the season of giving.
Giving out a lot.
Okay. Now, we mentioned that John Benet Ramsey documentary that is a 3-parter, and it's worth watching. You learn stuff that we had forgotten. And, they still have not caught the killer.
No.
And I think she's now passed away. The mother has passed away, and the father is still alive. But Chris Cuomo on News Nation had the father, Ramsey.
John Ramsey. And Geraldo Rivera on. At the same time?
Yes. And to talk with Geraldo, does he regret doing this horrible mock trial? Now, can you imagine... just out of nowhere, on a whim. It's a whim. It's like, I don't know anything really about this case, but I think the parents did it. Let's do a mock trial to see if it's true. That's horrible.
Yeah.
Just imagine the pain the parents were going through. And then they have to turn on the TV and see Geraldo, see them trying to prosecute them. And then ultimately, they're found guilty. How does Geraldo react to this today? He kind of, believe it or not, I think he really kind of does a double down on this a little bit. Listen.
As we have John Ramsey here, about where your head was when you did that mock trial and where you are today.
Well, mock trials and moot courts, as you know, Chris, are not that unprecedented. They're not that extraordinary. And I'll get to the conclusion they reached in a second, but...
You see John Ramsey's face when he said that?
Yeah. Like, are you kidding me? You have 2 parents who just lost their daughter, brutally murdered, and you're going to do a mock trial on national television, basically coming to the conclusion that they did it. And that isn't unprecedented? Yeah, it is. That's unprecedented.
Yeah.
That
is irresponsible. And he continues.
Let me just say to John Ramsey that I deeply apologize to you for what you and your family have suffered, how you have lost your wife to cancer, one child to that terrible car crash, and, of course, what happened to John Benet, 6 years old, who would now be 34 years old, which is an incredible fact, how long this case has been front row center in the American consciousness. So when I say I am sorry, I don't apologize for my reporting. I believe that at least half the reporters and half the nation believe that the shadow of suspicion, half the Boulder Police Department, at least those who have not retired or those who have retired because of this case, believe it. But I don't know what happened. I just want you to know that I lament contributing to the hurt that you have endured. I don't think no one deserves to go through what you went through. That's my bottom line.
So basically, what he's saying,
put you through.
So basically, what he's saying is, I'm sorry that you lost your wife and 2 of your children tragically. But I still believe that you were responsible, and so do half the reporters. I mean, what?
No, he's not saying that. He's saying that at the time they did believe that, and they were also being led by an irresponsible
He
Boulder.
said he still defends his reporting.
He defends the reporting. So he's saying that we covered the news that we had. The problem is that news included a lot of opinion. There's a difference between commentary and news.
Yeah, and reporting.
But one of the problems is that the Boulder Police Department was really the most irresponsible, because that's where, if I were him, I would have gone. Because they were the ones that kept pushing this narrative that the parents did it. And, that way you can say, listen, we were reporting on the stuff that we were being given, and that police department thought you guys did it. And furthermore, they kept the DNA evidence from everybody. They kept it quiet for a long time. Instead, he's not saying that he thinks they did it. They clearly didn't do it. The DNA evidence proved that they didn't do it. But then the police department kept it from the public. It was terrible.
And when I walk around,
I'm not defending him, because I think he should have Geraldo just should have said, "I'm sorry. I wish I didn't do that." I would leave it at that, because he shouldn't have done it.
and it is with stories like yours in my head over the last 54 years of my career, it is a burden to me. It's a soulful burden. And again, man to man to you, I apologize, and I am sorry for everything you have gone through, John.
Watch why Japanese people eat white rice.
Rice?
Let me see. Why do Japanese people eat white rice?
What the hell is that?
These commercials
It's
just...
pure glucose in starch form. It is one of the fastest ways to raise your blood sugar of any of the
We're
starches.
committed now.
Okay.
John,
thank you.
what do you have to say, and what do you want people to know about what needs to happen?
At this point, if I'm Chris Cuomo, I'd be like, John, what do you have to say to this piece of garbage?
Let him have it.
Well, we want two things to happen. We've been critical of the police for 28 years for not accepting help.
And rightly so.
Well, that's the other part, is they had no experience in Boulder to be handling a crime like
they
this.
They didn't even bring in the FBI.
They accepted no help. They handled it all on their own, and this was it was a very big mistake. But then to realize they were wrong but keep it quiet is even more, to me, criminal.
The case could have been solved a long time ago.
And that's the other part. They ignored anyone else, thinking that it was the parents. They also went in and they destroyed evidence when they walked through. I mean, he did too, because he found his daughter's body, ultimately found his daughter's body. But they allowed the family to search the house. It's a huge estate, a huge house. They allowed the family to do the searching. That should have been sealed off.
Of course they'd be the prime suspects.
It should have been sealed off immediately.
Yeah.
And they then could have had evidence, but instead they handled it way improperly, according to police experts.
In my opinion, had the police not immediately focused on Patsy and I, and only focused on Patsy and I, we accepted that and told them, look, okay, we understand that. We are in the house, so we're suspect. But don't stop there.
It's a very good point. And ultimately, they did not kill their daughter. And it would be irresponsible, probably, of a police department to ignore the possibility that they did. But to then be like, solve the case. We feel they did it.
Yeah.
And then only focus on
anywhere
them.
else.
They just completely let all this other evidence and potentially the killer get away. And it's terrible. I want to bring in, it's not on because of this, but we are just.
we did not bring you on to talk about this
happen
case.
to be talking about this.
But,
Sheriff Rob Maciol, and it's an example of, I would think, how not to respond to a crime. You're too proud to bring in additional help. How not to respond to a crime if you're a police agency.
Exactly. And I remember this case in some of the things that stand out in my mind. Those newspapers that used to be in when you're cashing out in the grocery store.
Yeah, the Enquirer and
and they were they focused on this case oh my gosh, probably, I mean, a long, long time. It was front page for edition after edition after edition. And we, many of us said, it's the same thing here, that they were just kind of in over their head. And we find that occasionally with, smaller agencies, and again, whether it's a pride thing or what, they don't tend to reach out to larger agencies for assistance, not because they're not capable of it, but they just don't have the resources, the technology, but it's just it's an unfortunate, very unfortunate case. Really,
and I would think, as a police, you being a lifelong police officer, now sheriff, that the first time you've ever investigated anything versus how you investigate things today, I would imagine that through experience, things progress, and you may look back on things to say, well, I could have done this differently. Not that it was a mistake like what the Boulder police made, but I'm assuming you just get better with time.
Exactly. I can clearly remember. Well, I remember the first arrest I ever made, and I'll be starting year 36 on the 17th of this month, so it's coming right up. But I remember the first arrest I made, and it was stemming from when they were building the Utica Business Park, believe it or not. That's how long ago it was. And then the first high-speed chase I ever had in my career, it was actually a burglary where they stole a car and ran from me. And I remember, that case, I reached out to my now Undersheriff Joe Lisi, but at the time he was just an investigator at the sheriff's office because I was in over my head. And the sheriff's office, they assigned their criminal investigation unit to our case in New York Mills. We worked it together. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who gets the collar. I know a lot of people like that, but they want the collar.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who signs the paperwork. The end of the day is that you solve the case and you bring justice to the victims. That's what it's about. I could care less what agency handles it. Just like when you dial 911, I don't care if what agency comes, as long as someone gets there quick when someone's calling for help. That's what we're in this for. On
another note, anyway, this is a documentary, I believe, Netflix, and if you get an opportunity, it's interesting to watch because it brings back a lot, and you look back on it like, how could we have treated this family this way? Just automatic. And we did the same thing with the Atlanta bombings, remember? And that guy sued and won. It seems like back then we did a lot of passing judgment. I hope we're not the same today. And I wanted to bring up to you about the Friday night heading out to the Jimmy Fallon show at the Rome Capitol. Snowing hard, and once again, there's someone driving in the eastbound lane going west, and it was another potential disaster. I'm hoping nothing came out of that on Friday night.
I'm not aware of anything coming out of that situation. Obviously, the one prior to that was a very tragic case. But this comes down to, and I know the topic we're going to talk about here is ice safety, but same thing on the roadways. People have to use common sense, and you have to take your time. And again, if you're not comfortable driving at night, if you're not comfortable driving in the rain at night or snow at night, don't try that. You know what I mean? Just stay away. Just don't go wherever you got to go. I mean, obviously, unless it's an emergency, which you can get someone else to take you. Again, we just see this time after time, and it does get frustrating. I say it. I mean, I'm on your show all the time, whether we're talking about boater safety, snowmobile safety, ice safety, hunter safety. But every time, every season, something happens tragically, and the case with ice safety, we saw that not here, but in the Capital District.
Yeah, it's terrible
story. And our winters now are not the traditional winters we've had before. I mean, I'm at 13 at my house right now. Tonight it's going to be in the single digits, but then by Monday we're looking at rain again. So this up and down, what that's going to do if anyone likes to ice fish or snowmobile, cutting across the water, don't get fooled by a night of single digits. Because that's not going to do it. I mean, to walk on ice, you need 4 inches of thickness. To drive a snowmobile or a UTV, you're going to need 6 to 8 inches. A side by side, you're going to want 8 or 10 inches. My God, a car, you're going to certainly need a lot more. People have to use common sense. I mean, you're putting your life at risk. You're putting the first responders' lives at risk that have to go out and rescue folks. And falling into the water, typically the ending is not good when you fall through the ice.
What a terrible story this was out of the Capital District, where the boy, I don't know, 12 years old, whatever the age was, falls in. The girl, who's just maybe a year younger, tries to help him. She falls in. He dies at the scene. She's taken to the hospital, and then a few days later passed away. These are just children, and you think about this moment of this little girl, this moment of bravery, where she put her own safety, his rescuing him above her own safety, and it ended tragically. But
the instincts of such a young child to step in and intervene
unnoticed. The fact that she really tried to save him.
Exactly, and I mean that family lost both of their children. I mean, that is just so tragic, and like I said, it's just and again, it wasn't even that cold then, so I can't imagine how thin that water that ice was, and just like I said, and the thicknesses I threw at you, that's for water standing still. You take moving water, water with a body of water with current underneath there. You're going to want to even make that, wait till it gets thicker. Experienced ice fishermen will tell you. They want to drill through 8 or 10 or 12 inches of ice. They don't want to go out there and drill through 2 inches of ice because, and with this up and down fluctuation of temperature, that ice is going to thaw and then it's going to freeze again and thaw and freeze again. Every time that happens, it cuts down the strength of that ice by 50%. So even though it's thick, because those layers of thawed ice are the thawing and the refreezing, the strength is just, like I said, cut right in half.
The other part of this too is depending on the body of water. So a lake may look like it is standing water, but as you travel across that lake, there may be areas where there's current and where the inlet or the outlet actually is running water through, and that ice will be thinner than the ice that is in the more calm part of the lake.
Exactly. And the perfect example of that is for the ice fishermen that fish, let's say, the St. Lawrence River, where they fish the bays. The bays will have 8 inches of ice. Yeah. But out where the channel is, it's not even going to be frozen.
Right.
So, you really got to know what you're doing. And for the folks on snowmobiles, stay on the trail systems. Once we get going here, we have 650 miles in Oneida County alone of groomed snowmobile trails. There's no reason to be driving over lakes and waterways unless the trail goes over that lake or waterway, So that's done for a reason. And it's for safety. There's some awesome things that happen in our county as far as tourism and winter activities go. But tragedy strikes every single season, no matter what we're talking about, because people don't use common sense.
Yeah, and boy, it does look like we are on the road to a pretty good, at least to the north, a pretty good snowmobile season.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. People love it. I'm not a snowmobiler, but we live right on the Penn Mountain Snowmobile Trail. It's adjacent to our farm, and you'll hear those sleds once they're up and open and going. You'll hear them running all night long. And people truly enjoy it. And I hope it's a good winter because it is important to our economy also.
Yeah.
And but again, people have to use common sense.
Hunting season ends, and then snowmobile season opens up.
That is correct. Hunting season has ended, and once the trail systems are ready to go, the individual clubs, we'll actually be doing our press conference next week on snowmobile safety.
Okay.
We're just finalizing the times, but the snowmobile clubs will be opening up their trails very soon. And, I hope they have a good season because it's been pretty rough the past few years. It's constant up and down, and winters aren't what they used to be. And that, like I said, that's why we're focusing on ice safety, because when people see a night like tonight where we're going to be in single digits, they're like, yeah, we can go out on the lake. Well, that's not true. So
right. Sheriff Rob Maciol is always on all these topics. We appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon at the Christmas Eve party.
It's coming up.
All right, Sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And speaking of the sheriff, we have the Clinton tractor. It's a motorized electronic tractor with a dump.
It's a New Holland T8 replica for the children.
Really cool. We're looking for a bid on that. There's currently a $300 bid on the Utica-Mac pickup truck, which has a roll bar and the whole 9 yards. These things You know, I don't know, the battery will last, like an hour or something like that?
Yeah.
They'll be able to, but much better than the batteries of old. But they're also have a little bit of torque. They'll go up little hills and around your backyard. Really cool. Make for a great holiday gift. Want to bid on it? And again, we're looking for our first bid right now on the one from the Sheriff's Association and Sheriff Maciol on that New Holland tractor. And you can call Davey at 315-736-0186 and make a bid. Davey, you're standing by. I see you standing by right now. Make a bid. 315-736-0186.